Commissioner Dizal,
Here.
Commissioner Corbin, here. Commissioner Meyer,
Here.
Commissioner Shaw,
Here.
and Mayor Lindsay.
Here. You have before you the agenda for this evening.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Seeing no appearances or acknowledgements, is there anything anyone wants removed from the consent calendar?
Motion to approve the consent calendar as presented.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Under unfinished business, approve the second reading of ordinance number 1661, amend appendix B, zoning section 1702. Jameson, you wanna?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the final approval for the rezoning on the Trojan Village development. It takes the property from agricultural to two different types of residential as well as a neighborhood business, and there have been no changes since the first reading.
All right. Anyone have any questions, comments? If not, do we have a motion?
Motion to approve the second reading of ordinance number 1661 and then appendix B zoning section 17.02.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Under new business, approve the first reading of ordinance number 1662, amend appendix B, zoning section 1702. And again, Jameson, you want to address this one?
This will be the first reading to rezone the old Garfield School from a general business district to R20 residential. This district does make more sense for the property, even as it exists now, and it's recommended for approval from the planning commission. I don't know the details, but I believe that the owner or the intended owner is planning to have some kind of development or redevelopment on that property. And so they're looking to have the zoning adjusted to reflect what it is intended for.
The one, down toward Dollar General. You know, it's a block off of Washington, so. And it has been, since it was a school, it's been, you know, quite a while. They've got quite a bit of a block to work with, so. Any questions or comments?
Good discussion with the planning and zoning board on that property here.
I wasn't present for that, Mayor. Were you?
No, and I wasn't present for that one either. I was out of town.
I haven't heard any concerns, or issues from the planning commission, and they had a unanimous recommendation for approval.
And it was also something that, you know, that back, when Chad was here, it was discussed at that time that, you know, and they saw no issue with it then, they just didn't follow forward with it. So,
I'll make a motion to approve the first reading of ordinance 1662, amend appendix B zoning section 17.02.
Second.
we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 2, adopt resolution 2023-29, fines, fees, and penalties resolution. And again, I'll ask Jameson to fill us in.
The city has a resolution in place which sets fees, fines, and penalties for the public works and utilities departments. And periodically we like to review that and make adjustments to keep up with inflation and changes. And also significantly with this particular resolution is the sections that reference to the ordinance. Since the last resolution was approved, we had the recodification notes finalized. So the past resolution was referring to ordinance sections which don't line up with the current ordinances anymore. So we've updated all the sections, and we've also updated pricing for different fees, fines, and penalties to reflect what we generally need. In many cases, it's recouping costs that we're incurring. So staff across several departments worked collaboratively on this, and we've brought it to you for approval to update. And I'll acknowledge that this is a resolution that we can always update whenever we feel like as well, and generally we'd like to look at it at least once a year.
I did have one person ask me, what's the prohibited use of water?
Is it under the water, I assume?
It's under there, and I didn't have an answer.
Can I speak to that?
If you're curious
Yes.
to come
I
over.
think that is an old one that used to be when we used to have watering restrictions.
Okay,
In place for like watering lawns and stuff.
Yeah,
I believe that that's what that's.
that makes sense, but that's not something that came to my mind, so I said, I don't have an answer. So, no, makes good sense now, so. All right. Any other questions? If not, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt, resolution 2023-29, fines, fees, and penalty resolution.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 3, approved televising services agreement with HydroClean LLC. And again, Jameson, you want to address this one?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is related to televising sewer lines for the segment 5 of our SRF project. Segment 5 is going to be split into 2 years, and the 2024 section consists of 4th Street south, I should specify, from Highland to Union, and then Union from 4th to the bypass. Did I describe that correctly, Weston?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so
Weston, do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah.
From the,
And also-
especially for the general public?
And I can clarify a little bit further here. So this is televising sewer lines on that subject area, which is for construction improvement next year. There are multiple sewer lines that run throughout this area, and so this televising helps to identify service line locations which are needed for the improvements. Total cost with HydroClean is just over $14,000, and this is eligible for reimbursement through SRF funding. Go ahead.
And Jameson was correct in his explanation or description. Primarily, this is for the design of the project. That sanitary system in that location is fairly complex. So we'd have to make a fair amount of assumptions without having the televising information to show where connections are at. Or there could be some unknown connections that we would come across in construction. It'd be better to identify those now. That way we can incorporate that into our design. One thing to add on to this, so there is about 11,200 feet of sanitary sewer and storm sewer pipe that we're proposing televised. There's roughly another 1,000 feet of sanitary sewer pipe and storm sewer pipe on Union Avenue, so North Union between 5th and 9th. And if the commission does approve this, approve to move forward with this televising scope, we would like to add that into the scope as well. Jameson, you probably weren't aware of that. I just had identified that recently. So we would like to include that into the scope and ask HydroClean to complete that work while they're in town.
That change makes sense for you. Would you need an amendment to the contract for approval tonight, or is that something that can be added on later or separate contract? What are you envisioning there?
So
A day, or what are you looking at?
so it's about 2 days of work to complete what's shown in this scope here. And adding that 1,000 feet, I would anticipate that wouldn't add any more days to their work or their time on site. I did reach out to HydroClean earlier today and asked them when the soonest they could complete this work is. They said the soonest would be next week is when they could start. So if approval was given tonight, they would be able to get it on their schedule and have a crew here next week to do the work.
So I imagine a change order second.
I think on this, they would end up revising, because this is based on a per foot basis.
Okay.
So it is a unit price. So even if they did mobilize to the site and we've got 11,242 feet scoped here, and we found another lateral off the line that it made sense for them to televise and not pay another mobilization cost for them to come back, that would be adjusted. So they're giving us this unit price of $1.25 per foot. So I'd anticipate that if we move forward, they would give us that same price, but add in whatever additional footage was, completed.
Other questions? Comments? Okay, on this one here, and that, I guess one of the things that I would address here and that, or like addressed, and that is to approve this with the addition of.
I'll make a motion that we approve the televising services agreement with HydroClean LLC with the contract in addition to the 1,000 feet at the $1.25 per square foot.
Per unit.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Number 4, approve change order number 2 for the city administration building construction. And again, Jameson, I'll ask you to address this one.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At the prior meeting, there was action taken that allows the city administrator to,
Is this not that? It is.
what's that?
In your notes, it's this, not that.
Yes, okay, yeah. That authorizes the city administrator to execute change orders up to amount of $25,000. And so that's because this project, as opposed to some of our other projects, which funding requires all change orders to come to the commission, we have the discretion over how that's done. So with that action taken at the last meeting, this change order is certainly outside the realm of $25,000. It's $114,000, but fortunately it is a decrease in project costs, so it's a good thing for the city. And this has been expected for a little while now, when the commission gave us direction to move forward with precast panels that were acid finished and sandblast finished instead of a thin brick. That took off about $100,000 right there. And then there was some additional savings due to extending that precast down to the foundations and construction designs accordingly to make that work, which is what is preferred by all parties. So ultimately, this is a change order that saves us around $115,000. I'll note that the way that we're going to be handling this project is by changing the contingency fund when changes are made positive or negative, so that we don't have to re-execute contract documents for change in project costs. And then at the end of the construction, we will be able to see what's left in that contingency, and we'll still only be paying for what has been authorized, what's been approved. Stand by for any questions.
This is the kind of change that's nice to see, a decrease. So, questions or comments? Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve change order number 2 for city administration building construction.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Number 5, approve change order number 1 for the reconstruction of hangar taxi lanes, airport drive, and parking lot project at the airport. And again, I'll ask Jameson to address this.
Some of this work comes from the discovery of an old sump pump pit structure that was found at the airport, which we had not known of before. And so the total amount of this change order is about $6,500, but it is eligible for FAA funding. FAA covers 90%, the state covers another 5%. So that leaves us with only 5%, which is $323, which is a fairly insignificant amount, but the change is needed for this airport project.
Questions, comments? Motion.
I'll make a motion to approve change order number 1 for reconstruct hangar taxi lanes, airport drive and parking lot project.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Authorize the mayor to sign the South Dakota Department of Public Safety Cooperative Agreement dealing with wildland fires. And again, I'll ask Jameson to address this.
From time to time, the volunteers within our fire department have the opportunity to assist on wildland fires outside of our jurisdiction. This is an opportunity for them to gain experiences, but it also is an opportunity for our fire department to make some revenue through their services. Every 5 years, we have a cooperative agreement to approve with the State Department of Public Safety, and that's what this is here, laying out the rules and regulations for how those wildland fires will work.
Questions, comments?
Yeah, I just want to add that it's a good deal. I know, our guys, enjoy doing it, and we do make some decent money off of it, so.
This is volunteers when Wade would go out.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know, there's probably 5, 6 guys that are qualified and have that.
Okay, questions, comments? Do we have a motion?
Make a motion to authorize mayor to sign South Dakota Department of Public Safety Cooperative Agreement wildland fires.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 7, update on the 2023 infrastructure improvement projects. Jameson,
turn it
you
straight over.
started, or would you-
Thank you.
Take it.
I've got project flyers included in the agenda. We'll just start in the order they're included. We'll start with segment 3. Segment 3 is in the northeast portion of the city. So this is a multi-season project, a project that had started in 23. There's a section of work that's going to be completed in 2024. So the work completed this year included phase 1 and phase 2. That would be on 6th Street between Prairie Avenue and Roosevelt, and then on Roosevelt between 5th and 7th. So discussing phase 1 and 2, the underground work had been completed for nearly a month now. The asphalt surfacing was just placed last week. That roadway was open to traffic, although limited traffic access. And the reason for that, right now concrete work's being completed. They're working on the sidewalks, working on driveway approaches, anticipating that work will be completed by the end of this week. Following that, the boulevard restoration will be completed along with the seeding. Normally the seeding at this time of year is going to be dormant seeding. So we've got kind of a generic date of November 15th. That is the contract date. But generally seeding takes place before freeze up. As far as phase 4 was a contractor option phase on this project to be completed either this season or next season. The contractor had chosen to complete it this season. That was some water main work that took place on Antelope Drive at the Antelope and 4th Street intersection, then also Antelope and 3rd Street intersection. 3rd Street, there was a lane closure on 3rd Street for a little while. That's now been reopened, surfacing was replaced, and the contractor will continue the restoration work there, probably in conjunction with the phase 1, phase 2 work. Phase 3, that's the portion of the project which I'll just call North Roosevelt between 7th and 9th. It also includes a segment on 8th Street between Prairie and Roosevelt, and then Maplewood Drive between Roosevelt and Division. That work is scheduled to commence next spring. The contractor on this project again is Prunty Construction. They've done a very good job. They were able to get the surfacing work done, and they've continued that work with their concrete sub. And they're committed to completing this project or this phase of the project this year. Questions, comments pertaining to phase 3 or segment 3?
I can speak to it, just live on it, but they've been accommodating, super easy to work with. I know on weekends, they would always open the roads, so we get down there and park in the road and. But it's gone just like it should. I know we have other projects in town that quite haven't gone that way, but this one really is gone like it should, so. I do hope that they did some more of the projects, because they were super efficient, so accommodating to the homeowners too.
They have been very good at coordinating with the city staff and with Banner as well, so commend them on that. We'll move on to the Northwest 9th Street project. This project, of course, is a multi-season project that had started last year. Had 2 primary phases. Phase 1 was from Highland Avenue to Chicago or to the school entrance. Phase 1 utility work and roadway reconstruction work was completed last year, with the surfacing being completed this year. Primary amount of work this year has been on phase 2 of the project. So that would be from in front of the elementary school over to the east side of the creek, kind of near Egan Avenue, so east of Josephine. Work remaining on this project, or specifically in phase 2, is the curb and gutter, asphalt paving, sidewalks, driveway approaches, and then boulevard restoration and seeding. Right now, as far as the schedule, we've been able to work on schedule the past few weeks with the contractor. They have been, pretty attentive to providing a schedule, and then even providing some updates as well, when requested. Right now, and over the last week and into this week, although there was a couple days lost last week due to the rain, the contractor has been working on concrete, so they've been placing curb and gutter, and that's their primary focus right now, is to complete the curb and gutter, so that way the roadway work can progress further. They're anticipating that the curb and gutter work will be completed west of Josephine by, I've got a mistake in here, instead of 11/19, so October 19th. So by Thursday this week, I'm hoping that everything west of Josephine will be completed as far as curb and gutter. Then beyond that, continuing that concrete work east of Josephine and having that completed by the middle of next week.
10, 25.
10, sorry, yep. Each of these 11 should be a 10. So in conjunction with the concrete work, there will be a roadway contractor on site. They'll be doing some finished grading. So grant access to the north side of 9th Street is fairly difficult. So there is gonna be a grading contractor that is gonna have to work on 9th Street from east to west. So there's gonna be a little bit of cross construction traffic where residential traffic's still gonna have to cross. So just to be mindful of that, I guess, for the residents to be mindful that there's gonna be some equipment that's gonna be moving east and west across the job site. Anticipating the finished grade will take, approximately the remainder of this week and into next week. I've gotten a little bit of an update on asphalt paving. I've got here listed in the project flyer that it'd be starting the week of next week, so 10/23. It looks like that asphalt will begin likely on 10/25 or 10/26. So either next Wednesday or Thursday. Given this schedule, I've had an opportunity to review that and feel pretty comfortable with what the contractor is proposing. It's definitely attainable. They've got a concrete crew there that's been making some fairly good progress on completing that curb and gutter work. We had an opportunity to talk to them today as well. And they're anticipating that they'll complete the concrete work at the intersection of Union by Wednesday. So they'll be forming tomorrow and pouring Union Avenue Wednesday. So that intersection will be closed down this week. And then they're gonna move to Josephine and they'll be forming the intersection concrete work there. And they'll be pouring that concrete work on Friday. So there's likely gonna be a time, or there will be a time when Union and Josephine will both be closed. Access will be from the east and the west. There'll be access on Liberty yet for the school, and, access to the north will be through the private drive, where the city has an agreement with that property owner.
And so just to clarify that, because Scott's sitting right there behind you, Matt, looking at that. We'll be able to come up Liberty on to 9th and then up through the Amherst addition. And that when Josephine and Union are closed for those two intersections. And Michael's here too, and so.
And the intersection closures,
We got 3 of them right there besides myself.
Great.
4. Yep, 4.
It's 4.
So,
perfect.
yeah.
So thanks for clarifying that. And there will be, it will be an extended closure. The reason for that is the concrete is gonna need time to cure and to gain strength. Generally, you can gain strength in 3 days. We'd like to give it more than that if able to. We will be taking tests on that concrete to determine what that strength is at 3 days. If it's at adequate strength, then that roadway will be open. If it's not, it'll be closed until it does reach strength.
Okay, now, before we go further, did anyone affected by that have any questions at this point? Just give you that opportunity.
So when am I gonna get to use my garage? I haven't been able to use it for 3 weeks.
That's it.
Not now, already. I mean, well, I could get in and out at times.
Okay, and so your driveway approaching that is gonna be.
It's already been 3 weeks and I'm wondering when,
He just, the first place in that, east of Josephine on the south side, so.
And
I mean, even as road closed and we couldn't even get through access for the last couple of weeks. I mean, the signs are there. I know some people have been trying to get through, but it's been pretty ugly.
And I don't know that we'll have an exact date to tell you, Scott, but at least things are still moving forward and it appears at least Mother Nature's working with it.
He said the 25th or 26th, right?
so the 25th or 26th, so that would be when the asphalt work begins. One of the challenges that the contractor will have with the concrete work is when the asphalt crews mobilize in, the concrete crews are gonna have to be out of there. For the reason that they're not gonna be able to bring concrete trucks in or bring their equipment in on the asphalt. There will be 2 lifts of asphalt, so the contractor come in, place that bottom lift. They haven't given us a schedule on top lift. Normally that'll take approximately 2 days to put the bottom lift in. Beyond that, we'd have to request a schedule from the contractor on when they would expect to complete the concrete work. But that would be the next, task on the project is put your asphalt, complete the sidewalk and driveway approaches.
So that gets the curb and gutter and the asphalt, what about the driveway? Because I still can't get in, thank you.
So, and that will be, it'll be after the asphalt, so if the asphalt is 4 days of work, it would be, that following week, which I think is the 30th then. So the week of the 30th and into that next week, when the concrete work would then commence again.
And then it's gotta cure again.
And then it's got to cure, yep.
So we're probably looking 3-4 weeks, yeah, at least.
I would say at least 3-4 weeks.
See, you got two of them on the south side right there and one on the north side right there. And one on the north side there, but on the east end.
I assume that these will be done one side at a time. Like the gutters crossing the streets will be done one side at a time because they'll need access to get around.
They haven't indicated how they do that yet. If they do one side or the other, just move across the project in tandem.
Is it the same crew that did Sixth Street that's doing that?
Yes.
So what they did on Sixth is they put the asphalt down, and then they just came in and poured driveways they did asphalt on that Monday of Columbus there, and then they were pouring driveways on Tuesday. And they had them all done, they poured the entire road, and they worked all the way till dark, on sidewalk and driveways. They got the entire Sixth Street done. And
Well, they'll be the only one working till dark then. Cause they haven't been now.
No,
And sunset was at 9 o'clock during the summer.
Well, the concrete crew is different than.
I know, I realize that.
Yeah,
I'm just talking about the crew that's there now. The general and the subs under them for the grading work and all
well,
that. I've been
winter,
6 weeks since I could even get into my driveway.
winter is doing Ninth Street right on the west. And this would be, Prunty did Sixth Street.
Yeah, with the same concrete crew.
Concrete, yeah.
So,
Okay, gotcha, yeah. Got it.
Are you using the same paving crew?
So no, it's not. It is not the same asphalt paving crew. The asphalt paving crew that was on segment 3 was Double H Paving. It'll be Bose Construction on 9th Street. But I can certainly ask for the updated schedule on the concrete work and how they plan to address the driveway approaches. That can be something I can work with city staff on, and they can publish that on their website.
on what website?
Says,
I looked at the city of Madison's engineering website, and it's always like, this is where we're at, not where we're gonna be, not a timeline showing this phase will be done, this phase will be done by this date. It's always behind now.
or they'll say what they're gonna be working on now, but they won't say when it's gonna be completed, what the schedule is.
Right.
You haven't
I
had
looked
a
today,
timeline, or a project timeline to work off of, correct? Or getting that
that's-
information.
That's a big part of that, is there has not been there's not been a very specific schedule submitted to the city. And so a lot of this has been a week at a time. This is what we're gonna work on this week. This is what we're gonna work on this week.
I saw.
And I think part of that is maybe poor communication or lack of communication from the subcontractors as well to the general. So we're taking whatever information we can get and, provide that to the city staff, and the city staff is included in these conversations as well. But then they're posting it on the website. And a lot of times, like I said, that is, the work that's gonna be completed that week.
And that last post as of yesterday was the 27th of September.
Okay.
My question, if I can,
Who's in charge of this project?
So winter contracting.
I
is
know
a
who the
general
contractor is, but who do they answer to?
So they answer to the city of Madison. They're hired by the city of Madison. Banner Associates is hired to do the construction administration, which we attend each meeting. We contact the contractor, and work with the contractor on the completion of the work, as far as schedule. And that's, part of our responsibility to take that schedule, review that, make sure that it's a reasonable schedule to complete the work, make sure that they're completing the work in accordance with the plans and specs. So Banner is acting as a representative for the city. And that would be myself. I'm the project manager for Banner.
So you answer to the contractor, you speak for the contractors.
I-
And contractor answers
No,
to him.
I
Contractor
don't-
answers to you and
Sure.
you answer to the city, is what you're saying. In short,
I relay the information onto the city.
Together on it.
okay.
So as far as schedule, we set the schedule at the beginning of the project, set the schedule in the contract. And, they sign the contract, complete that work within that time frame, and so we help administer that contract on behalf of the city.
So are there penalties being incurred right now for the timing of this project?
Penalties typically don't get incurred until the finalization date that the contractor is given. So when the contracts go out, now they have a starting date and an ending date. And so once it gets to the ending date, after the ending date, then that's when penalties start looking.
But that's just accruing, right, until the project is over.
Until the project is totally over then. But during the time period from start to beginning, start to ending within the contract, that's the contractor has that time frame to work with, however it works for them and their subcontractors to get the work done.
And the substantial completion date west of Josephine was August 11th, according to the city website.
Yes.
Which means that they are in the penalty phase right now.
$75,000.
Right, I guess I'll note that this project hasn't gone to your expectations. It hasn't gone to our expectations.
But it was the same with last year.
Yeah, and
And
as a city,
that's the frustration.
I agree. I'd say that our staff and our commissioner are frustrated as well. As a city, we can hire a contractor, we can sign a contract with them, and we can set them up for success the best we can. And I'll defend our staff to the end that they have set them up for success the best they can. But ultimately, we're not the ones out there installing the pipe, we're not the ones out there coordinating the subcontractor, that's all on them. And once the project's finished, then we can look back at it and say, what could we have done differently? And we're always thinking about that. Ryan and I talk about it almost every week. There are things that we can be doing differently to do this better. And ultimately, there's not a lot of things that we can do. It's up to the contractors to get these projects done. And the one thing we've got over them is these liquidated damages. But we assess that at the end. If you're in the middle of a
And
football
that
game.
doesn't help us during the course of this
No, it doesn't.
frustration.
No,
Understood.
it doesn't. And if you're in the middle of a football game,
Well,
we could sit back and look at the last drive, the last play, and really lament over how it didn't go our way. Or we can focus on the next drive and the next play. And from the staff standpoint, that's what we're always trying to do is where we're at right now today, what can we do moving forward to try to set this up for success?
Not
And we are trying.
Not rehire the coach that you had last year.
Yeah, and that's then we can consider at the end of the year too, like we had a contractor that didn't meet expectations, we're gonna have more projects coming up, we can take that into consideration when we're hiring those out, but. At the end of the game, at the end of the construction, we can look back and decide, this is fair, liquidated damages, this is not fair, whatever level we wanna do. And I think the commission here can have a lot of robust conversations for multiple of these projects for implementing those liquidated damages, but,
Was there damages assessed for the last phase, or is that last year?
well, I think that's the next page
Oh, okay.
here that West will get to.
And are you
but-
talking phase one?
I was talking west of the school last year,
Oh, it's
81
part of the same project.
81 to
so that hasn't been assessed.
We did have deadlines for that, which were adjusted last year. I'm not trying to here to defend the contractor, especially for the 2023 work, but at the end of 2022, we looked at that and decided there were some things that were outside their control. Some of those things were the city's control. We did some design changes, which impacted the schedule. And some of it was the gas companies as well. So if I remember right, Weston, I believe we adjusted last year's end date for that phase one construction to allow them to finish that up in the spring. That doesn't mean that they're gonna have the same conversation for the 2023 construction.
Exactly.
And there were things in that, and Scott was right across the street from you, and that when the gas company bored in the line, and that they bored right through the sewer line on that house, and it backed up into the people's, and so they had to tear that up. And then up by Shapers and that, you know, pulling the pipe under the creek and that, you know, I was up there when it stuck, and they had to do that a second time and pull under a second pipe, and so there were things in that, you know, even though the contractor wanted to do things right, and that there were things that are hidden underground that they didn't anticipate either, and so.
But usually you accommodate for your timeline to have some setbacks. I mean,
Especially in a summer like this,
A
where we haven't
contract.
had rain.
no rain, yeah, well, we
Understood.
talked about 2 days, the last 2 days, well, 2 days didn't
No,
put this project back like this.
no, so I'm totally understanding,
Okay.
totally understanding. You know, and I
I've
don't
said
disagree
too
with
much
you, so.
You guys are.
But, so anyway.
This is what we were coming here for anyhow. I'm sure you probably figured that out by now. I don't know. If
Well,
we
you know
can do
what?
comments at the end, or I can comment it right now.
Well, and we're on that phase right now, and so that's why I opened it up, you know, for
Yeah,
your,
you
your
bring it up.
input, so. Okay, so with that, I'll let Weston continue.
Okay, and I'll finish the Northwest 9th Street with, you know, Jameson had kind of mentioned this, that there was some changes made on the project. And specifically changes made to that phase 2 of the project as far as the design. And to be completely honest and transparent, the design was completely changed. It was redesigned from the school to the end of the project. So the project that Winter completed this year was quite a bit different than the original project that they did. And so I wanted to put that out there and make sure that was stated that they did complete, yet the same, you know, project as far as the boundaries, but the scope within that was modified, I'd say fairly drastically.
And will you be able to go through that with us when we get to that point and be able to show us what
Mhm.
exactly was modified and
Yep.
how it was modified and?
Yep. I'll move on to the rural development projects, so this would be,
Question before you jump into that. Are you working on the, 3rd Street? Is that part of your guys' planning to up at the airport, the re-grind and?
No, I
No,
don't think they've
that-
had any involvement there.
I haven't.
Yeah, when he's finished, if you guys would like to address what I can.
In regards to the rural development project, so this would be the phase 1A, phase 1B, phase 2, and the water tower. So the rural development funded projects that took place in the northwest portion of town, and then the phase 2 that took place in northeast portion of town. You know, these projects have been at close to a closeout status for some time now. There's a punch list remaining on phase 1A and phase 1B. And this is one where, you know, the contractor has not had a lot of determination to complete that punch list at this time. And so, you know, I think there's some conversations that'll need to be had regarding how the remainder of the punch list gets completed. On both these projects, there's retainage being held. And so that retainage is being held, you know, to cover the costs of completion of the punch list. We have been trying to work with the contractor and get schedules from that contractor, which is J&J Earthworks, on the phase 1A and phase 1B project. They've been, you know, coordinating with some of their subs, but we just haven't seen progress on the punch list. We still are working on the closeout documents at this time, working on documents that be required by rural development. So that way those can be in order for when punch list items are completed, we can roll into you know, discussions on the contract and discussions for final completion and final payment on the project. Phase two, with the contractor on that project is Homey Inc. They have met final completion status. So that project would be ready for discussions on their contract, regarding contract times. And also we're working with them to complete all the documents that would be required by the funding agency, as well as completing a final pay request or, final payment of the contract. And eventually a final approval from the engineer that the project's completed. And then I've got phase 2B, that was the water tower loop line that was completed and has been completed for some time now. But was part of the general rural development scope of work. Any questions, comments on the phase 1 or phase 2 work?
So if they don't come back, James Deere works, do we need to sub that out then? Do we have the ability to sub that out and just get it done ourselves?
So that'd be something David would have to probably help with, but generally it would be a bond, a performance bond that would be used.
I mean, I don't think we should continue to drag this on. I think it needs to be wrapped up and we need to move on. And we'll just assess when their fines and liquidated damages and keep our track, I guess.
Well, and then too, this is on the RD project, and the RD project, now, I don't remember, is Diane already retired? I know she's thinking of retire, but it'd be nice to get it finished.
Yeah.
While she's still there.
She's still working at this time. Right, she does have plans to
Retired.
retire, yeah.
So,
I mean, that we're 3 years out from that project. I mean,
Mhm.
from the start of it, yeah.
Yep.
I mean, that's ridiculous.
Yep. And then the last project would be the water tower, was also part of the rural development project. I did talk to the project manager on the water tower right now. The contractor's working on completing the interior of the pedestal. So there's interior work inside the pedestal of the tower to be completed yet. And they'll be working towards startup and commissioning of the tower yet this fall. And still anticipating that final completion will be met before the end of the year. With that, if there's any questions, comments, anything else you'd like me to address?
questions, comments? Okay.
Have the Third Street on
Yeah,
it. Jump
so
to that.
recapping that, so Third Street, which would be the half mile adjacent to on the south side of the airport. The city has bid that out and awarded that bid to Bose Construction to mill it and overlay it. I guess going back even further, kind of historical perspective, that road was transferred from when the new highway was built through town in 1980. A long section of road was transferred either to the city or to the county. And from 1980 to a year or two ago, the county had maintained that half mile section of road. And at some point that they notified us that half section wasn't there according to those original transfer documents. It was something the city owned. And we looked into it and, we may not have liked it, but the county was right. That half mile was in fact underneath the city's ownership from when that was transferred back in 1980. So once we learned that, we approved that agreement with the county that related to ownership of both the bypass and that half mile should those two stretches of road be improved. And then that same meeting, we advertised or gave authorization to advertise for the mill and overlay of Third Street. So I felt on the city standpoint, we moved quickly to try to fix that road because it is clearly in dismal shape. For everybody who travels that, that it's not in great shape and you can't even go the speed limit safely on that road. So we're trying to work as quickly as we can. We bid that out. We got 2 bids, and the low bid was to Bose Construction. It was higher than we had hoped, but there wasn't any alternative. So we moved forward with approval of that bid. And since then, we've been trying to get a schedule from Bose. They have a very busy schedule, and this was a project they picked on, I think, later in their planning. So we do not yet have a date from Bose on when that would happen. If they aren't able to complete it this year, they would do it in the spring and would be subject to liquidated damages. And again, that's the liquidated damages are really all we have over contractors to do the work. The next bid on that was, I can't remember who it was, but it was substantially higher, so it wasn't that we had two really close bids and the one we selected isn't carrying through with, we had one low bid and one high bid. So we'd like to see that constructed. Another winter on the road will not bode well. We very much like to get done this year, but I believe it's outside our hands again.
Well, and that contractor's in town.
Yes.
So that's,
Yeah. I believe the work should only take a few days, maybe a week. So hopefully if the weather holds out and they have a gap in their schedule, I know they've had other projects that didn't pave according to the original schedule. Some are the ones here in Madison. Their schedule is very much up in the air and they're trying to figure out when they can get back to that work done.
What's the temperature that you can lay out at all at the lowest temp? 40 and rising?
The guidance, the SDDOT guidance is 40 and rising. So there's,
That ground temperature.
And that's pretty much ground.
that's ambient.
ambient.
It does still have to be frost free, but frost free ambient temp 40 and above.
All right, do we have any public comment out there? Any other questions? Thanks, Rusty.
Yep.
Okay, Scott and Jim Casanova came in. Jim did, we addressed a little bit of this earlier in that, but what are your questions in that at this point in that on 9th Street? You weren't in here when we talked with it earlier.
No, my question is, when we're getting some action of fixing the creek banks?
Oh, you're talking the creek,
2019.
okay? Jameson?
Yeah, the creek walls are still being, the designs are still being finished and then approved by FEMA. So the FEMA approval process has taken longer than expected. I think the design process has taken longer than expected as well. That project's still on the docket to get done. And Weston, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's FEMA's hands at this point.
I thought Ryan said it was already had the money from FEMA.
They've approved the funding. Yeah, they did that some time ago.
Yeah.
They
How
got
come we
approved.
don't let bids out for it?
Because we need to design it and then those designs have to be approved by FEMA.
Well, we don't wait for higher water because it's been pretty dry.
Yeah, we're not waiting for anything other than FEMA. And unfortunately, the F and FEMA doesn't temper back.
I guess the other question you asked me, Roy, about 9th Street?
Well, yeah, we were talking about 9th Street earlier in that, and I went down address here and I saw the 9th Street. But your question dealt with the creek. Theirs was dealing with the construction on 9th Street, and we did discuss that in that a little bit earlier. And so then I'm gonna go back to Scott Gusser and Scott Fink. Scott, yeah,
You got it
I
right.
get it right, yeah.
You said
Scott
Gustav,
Gustav,
I get that.
Scott Fink.
Not Gustav.
Did we get your questions answered?
Some, I also have a few others, not really questions, but
You can come on up if you'd like.
If you wouldn't mind coming up and that, you know, so that,
I guess the main thing is the things that were stated on the website that were not being addressed. I had street access, that was mentioned by Scott. I think 3 weeks, you said, for
The
Josephine,
last time, yeah.
even though there's a ramp and
Oh,
everything's okay to drive through, but they just left the barriers up.
so it didn't go through anything.
Right. Even though there was no drop off anymore.
That was a day before yesterday.
Yeah, that's when I noticed it, but I think
Before
it's,
that,
I think it's been,
drop off.
I think it's been, yeah. The letter that we received stated that the sidewalks would be maintained with a maximum of 1 block walking distance. Everybody walk more than a block? I walked more than a block several times.
So I walked, yeah, Steve
And your wife,
and my wife and the babysitting
Right.
mothers.
and then it said any that was removed, sidewalks that were removed would be open with temporary surface material. I haven't seen any of that. Their paths go around every single one. There's drop offs that are this in the sidewalks. The mail, construction update dated 6/9/20, 2022. 2023 stated the engineering office had been in contact with the post office. They're committed to provide mail service. Did not occur until 8/16, August 16th, 2 months later. I found out by noticing the mailboxes on Josephine, and I said, hey, I wonder if mine's up there. And I went up there, and there was a letter in the mailbox telling me that that's where the mailbox was. Not on my door. I mean, some of it's just laughable, but communication, we touched on that earlier. Unannounced utilities disruptions, street and intersection closures, mail disruptions. Just a heads up, we're gonna shut your water off in an hour, half hour, whatever. They told me, I found out that my water was shut off by turning my faucet on, nothing came out. And then I left for a while and came back and they asked, is this your house? And I said, well, of course it is, I'm coming here, walking in. Oh, your water's back on. I'm like, okay. The opposite would be better, telling me when they're gonna shut it off, not when it's back on. I could figure that out by lifting the handle. And then the completion dates. And I guess the reason that all of us are here is we don't want what happened west of the school to happen this year with the residences in that part of the project where there were no residences on the other side of the project. So 3 weeks. Oh, and the construction crews that park as close as they possibly can to the sites. When all they have to do is walk to their equipment. When we have to park, we're carrying groceries, we're carrying provisions,
Children,
walking children, carrying children.
children.
And we come up and see construction crews, engineering vehicles, city vehicles, where all they have to do is park another half block back and give us the consideration of being closer to our places.
And the timing of doing the chip sealing and stuff on Josephine and saying no parking all the way down Josephine really killed me.
Well, there were two steps
That was 3 days.
on that, because it was the chip sealing, and then we had to wait, and then we did the fog sealing.
But why didn't
Exactly,
do it during the construction period of 9th Street when that's the only place we had to park? I mean, the timing of that was just
That was, yeah, at least,
not thought out.
at least leave it back a block. 2 blocks, maybe.
2 blocks.
You had to go to
Oh,
7th
yeah,
Street, right?
Yeah.
And of course, parking on both sides of the street, that's been happening by every vehicle that was there. Well, last Thursday at 5:17 in the morning, while it was raining, my daughter walked out to her car that was parked on the left side of the street. Cause it's closer, and there was a drop off about this far, this deep behind her car. Whereas she backed up, she wouldn't know when to stop. And got a parking ticket.
Then my question is have you resolved the parking ticket?
Have not. I would have, but I wanted to bring it here to you guys. Because I knew Justin would say, no problem. I know him well enough that he would, yeah. But there's been cars parking there all summer on the opposite side of the street. And that's right exactly where the asphalt is cut for the street at Union and Ninth. So,
I see you've prepared notes, or is that something you're willing to leave with us?
yes.
Okay, I take notes.
And just for an example.
And I also, excuse me, Scott, I also had all the signatures that I got from residences on this. Appreciate it. Thank you.
And then another example is like he's mentioned the post office boxes. They put those on, I was going to the post office to pick up mail because we got no notification of where they were gonna finally get placed.
Mhm.
Then they ended up on the south side of 9th Street, a few mailboxes, just a few. And they weren't getting used even by the post office.
Even though it had
when
my
they were
address
there.
on it.
Then they got moved all the way up to the north side of Joseph or 9th Street. So literally right now, for me, in order to not cross Construction Street, which I couldn't for these weeks or days, certain days, we have to go around 2 blocks or 3 blocks, then up a block, cut across, come back, and it's the farthest north mailbox almost, and then up by your house, on the side of that hill. And then we gotta come all the way around again. So, I mean, we're talking,
And I worked on some of that with the post office, and the post office federal guidelines are the, delivery people cannot deviate from their route. And the south side of 9th Street is an in-town route for one mail driver. And the north side of 9th Street is an out of, town route for the other driver. And so, the contractor was the one that placed the mailboxes first and did not place them where the post office had approved for them to be. You know, and so that was brought to my attention, and so I brought it to the contractor's attention, and they did eventually move them.
I brought it
It took
to the
about a
post
week to do
office's
that.
attention too, and,
Yes,
and it took them a month to move it after that.
yeah,
so for me right now, I think I'm gonna go to the post office box and just don't put my mail on hold, I'll pick it up. It's easier for me to pick it up at the post office
some
box
people have done that.
than to drive.
And we already had a post office box, so it wasn't that big a deal for us, but I just needed to know where it was. So,
But they said down the post office, you can't do that now, as long as they got mailboxes. They told me.
Oh, was there?
I don't have a
So I
mailbox.
don't get-
you'd have to buy a box,
I rent them while post office.
rent a box, you'd have to rent
But
a
they
box.
told me as long as you got mailboxes, they got to deliver it now. Now, Scott's got a problem, they should have the box on the south side there.
Except
You
that's
said
on
you
a
couldn't.
total different delivery route.
That's
and-
walk
and the
delivery, yeah.
federal
Problem.
regulations will not allow the person to deviate from their route. So and Josephine isn't the only one that, you know, created an issue. It did on Union as well, and it did on Liberty as well. So,
I guess what impacts it the most is just because of the delays and this timing of project not getting done in a timely manner. Just magnified everything.
Mhm.
understood.
That's the point.
Yeah, we could
Alright.
have dealt with it for a month,
Yeah,
but not,
yeah,
not all
we're
summer.
dealing with it,
Yeah.
but it's gotten bad.
All right, well, I thank you all for being here.
Thank you for listening.
Mhm.
With that, move into announcements. The next regular commission meeting will be Monday, November 6th, 5:30 PM. There will be an open house for the Egan Avenue project Thursday, November 2nd, from 5:30 to 7 PM in the commission room.
I don't know that, I think maybe Wesley can help, so that, no, sorry, that's the Galen.
No, that's KLJ. I'm gonna
Oh,
say
wait,
commission room
no,
for this
no,
point in
I
time.
believe they were looking at the church, on the east side of the road, of Egan, I believe. I'd have to confirm that, but. I
Okay,
think they were looking at-
we'll confirm that, but anyway, keep that in mind, that there will be an open house for the Egan Avenue project, which we're hoping to move into next year. KLJ is the engineering firm on that, and the, time is, Thursday, November 2nd, 5:30 to 7 PM. I do not have a concrete location as to where that's going to be, but hopefully in that information will be out there, so. With that, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, everyone.